There's a diner in Ohio where the guy behind the counter has been making the same milkshake since 1951. Same recipe, same chrome stools, same handwritten menu on the wall. He's not doing it for nostalgia, he's not doing it for tourists. That's just how the diner works, it always has. And that place is not unique. Across America, there are towns that the modern world simply forgot to change. Not ghost towns, those are easy to explain. These are living, breathing communities where people wake up every morning, go to work, raise kids, and grow old inside a version of America that most of the country quietly buried decades ago. The interstate bypassed them. The big box stores never arrived. The developers took one look and kept driving. And in the process, something got preserved that almost nobody knew was worth saving. This list covers 10 of those places. By number 1, the town we end on has a detail so specific and so strange that it will make you question what stuck in time actually means, because the people there would say they're not stuck at all. Stay until the end. Number 1 earns it. Airy, Nevada. Most small towns in Nevada exist because of gambling, or mining, or both. When the mine closed and the gamblers moved on, the town usually went with them. Airy didn't. Airy sits in White Pine County, in the eastern Nevada desert, about 240 miles north of Las Vegas, and roughly that far from anything else worth mentioning. It was a copper mining town, founded in the 1870s, and it boomed the way all copper towns boomed, fast, loud, and with absolutely no plan for what happened next. What happened next was that the Nevada Northern Railway connected Airy to the outside world in 1906, and the copper kept coming out of the ground until the economics of it stopped making sense. By the 1970s, the mines had gone quiet. The population, which had peaked somewhere above 8,000, bled down to around 3,800 and stayed there. Here is what makes Airy different from every other town that lost its reason for existing. The buildings didn't go anywhere. The Hotel Nevada, built in 1929, is still standing at the corner of Altman and 4th Street, and still operates as a hotel and casino, making it one of the oldest continuously operating hotels in the state. The neon sign out front hasn't changed in decades. Walk inside and the carpet, the bar, the general arrangement of everything sends a particular signal. This room is not performing nostalgia. This is just what it looks like. Downtown Airy has more classic cars per capita than almost anywhere else in Nevada, and they're not museum pieces. They're transportation. Locals drive them. On summer weekends, the main strip fills up with polished 1950s and 60s Chevrolets and Fords, moving slowly enough that you can read the expressions on the people inside them. The residents have a phrase for this that gets repeated often enough to feel rehearsed. The rest of America moved too fast. It's a deflection, partly, but it's also a genuine piece of local philosophy. Airy didn't get left behind. It made a decision, slowly and collectively, not to follow. The Nevada Northern Railway still runs, not for freight, but as a heritage railroad. The original steam engine from the early 1900s still pulls cars through the White Pine County landscape on weekends, staffed by volunteers who have spent years learning how to operate equipment that nobody else in the country uses anymore. Airy also has one of the lowest costs of living of any county seat in Nevada, which creates a particular kind of resident, people who want out of cities without wanting out of community, people who find the pace correct. The neon signs still glow after dark. The Hotel Nevada still pours drinks at the bar that has been pouring them since before the Second World War. The steam engine still runs on Saturday mornings. No one here is pretending to live in the past. They're just not particularly interested in what replaced it. Stockbridge, Massachusetts. In 1953, a painter named Norman Rockwell moved to Stockbridge, Massachusetts. He was 59 years old, moving from Vermont, and looking for somewhere quieter. He found it. He stayed there until he died in 1978, and during those 25 years he painted Stockbridge so many times, in so many configurations, that the town and the images became inseparable. His most famous painting of the place, Main Street at Christmas, completed in 1967, shows the main commercial block of Stockbridge with its colonial-era storefronts, the Red Lion Inn anchoring the corner, a row of parked cars in front of shops that look as if they have been doing the same business since the Republic was founded. That painting is hanging in the Norman Rockwell Museum, less than a mile from where he made it. And the street in the painting still looks like that. That's the thing about Stockbridge that takes a minute to fully register. This is not a town that decided to look like a Norman Rockwell painting. Norman Rockwell moved here because it already looked like this, and then he painted it, and then the painting became the thing everyone knows, and the town has continued to look like it while the rest of Massachusetts changed around it. The Red Lion Inn has been operating as a lodging establishment since 1773. Not the same building throughout, the original burned in 1896, but rebuilt the following year and running continuously since. You can book a room at the Red Lion Inn today and have dinner in a dining room that served guests during the administration of Grover Cleveland. The main street has no chain restaurants, no chain hotels beyond the one outside the historic district. The storefronts are occupied by locally owned businesses in buildings that predate the Civil War. Elm Street leads into a residential area of white clapboard homes with black shutters and front porches that people actually use. What Stockbridge does not have is a highway. The Massachusetts Turnpike passes about 10 miles to the north. US Route 7 runs nearby, but the interstate system essentially stepped over Stockbridge and put the on-ramps elsewhere. This is not an accident. The residents fought to keep the highway out. In the late 1950s and 1960s, when the interstate system was being pushed through New England, communities along the proposed routes had to choose between accessibility and character. Stockbridge chose character. The result is a town that requires a small effort to reach and rewards that effort with the specific feeling of arriving somewhere that has not recalculated its identity to appeal to people passing through. Norman Rockwell is buried in the Stockbridge Cemetery, a short walk from the museum that holds his work. The gravestone is modest. The museum draws around 120,000 visitors a year. The street in the painting still looks like the painting. Bardstown, Kentucky. The old Talbot Tavern has been open since 1779. That sentence requires a moment, not the building's foundation, not the block it sits on, the actual tavern, serving food and drinks to paying customers, for well over 2 centuries. Daniel Boone drank here. A young Abraham Lincoln stopped here with his family. Jesse James, according to local legend, once stayed the night and shot at the murals upstairs. The bullet holes are still in the walls. Whether the Jesse James story is historically documented or affectionately maintained is a question the town handles gracefully by simply not making too big a point of it either way. Bardstown is the second oldest town in Kentucky, incorporated in 1785. It sits 40 miles southeast of Louisville in Nelson County, and for reasons that have more to do with geology and agricultural tradition than any deliberate decision, it became the center of American bourbon production. The limestone shelf running under this part of Kentucky naturally filters groundwater in a way that makes it ideal for whiskey. The grains grow well here. The climate creates the temperature swings that age bourbon faster in barrels than it would age anywhere else in the world. By the early 1800s, Bardstown was already the operational heart of an industry that would eventually become a $12 billion annual business. More than 95% of the world's bourbon is made in Kentucky. The largest concentration of distilleries in that state is here, in and around Bardstown. Heaven Hill, Bardstown 1792, Jim Beam's original site, all within a short drive. But the town itself is what matters for this list. The courthouse square has not significantly changed since the 1850s. The Pioneer Cemetery on South 4th Street has graves dating back to the Revolutionary War, including the inventor of the steamboat, John Fitch, buried under a stone that you can still read if you lean close enough. The jail that operated from 1797 until 1987, 190 years of continuous operation, now functions as a bed and breakfast called Jailer's Inn, where guests sleep in the cells. More than 300 individual structures in Bardstown are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The federal-style architecture along the main streets predates the Civil War. The bourbon hasn't changed. The tavern is still open. If there is a single detail that captures what Bardstown is, it might be this. There is a room at the Oscar Getz Museum of Whiskey History where you can see Abraham Lincoln's liquor license. He had one. It was issued in 1833 when Lincoln co-owned a general store in New Salem, Illinois, and sold whiskey by the drink. The license is here, in Bardstown, in a building that itself dates to the early 1800s. a document signed by Abraham Lincoln, displayed in a room that Lincoln's contemporaries would have recognized. That's the timeline Bardstown operates on. Marfa, Texas. Marfa is the only town on this list where the weirdness is the point. It sits in the Trans-Pecos Desert of far west Texas, 60 miles from the nearest city of any size, at an elevation of 4,685 feet, in the middle of a landscape that looks like it was built as a backdrop for a film about the end of civilization. The population is 1,788, down from a peak of around 3,900 in 1930. The county, Presidio County, covers nearly 4,000 square miles and holds fewer than 7,000 people. Marfa was founded in 1883 as a water stop for the Galveston, Harrisburg and San Antonio Railway. The town was named after a character in a Jules Verne novel by the wife of a railroad executive who happened to be reading it on the train. That detail alone tells you something about the casual arbitrariness of how the American West got its geography. In 1956, Hollywood arrived. Warner Brothers filmed Giant here, the James Dean, Rock Hudson, Elizabeth Taylor film, using the Riata Ranch outside town as a location and the Hotel Paisiano in downtown Marfa as the production base of operations. Dean, Hudson, and Taylor all lived in the hotel for weeks during filming. It was one of the last major productions Dean completed before his death in September of that year, 2 weeks after shooting wrapped. The Hotel Paisano is still there. It still operates as a hotel. The giant longhorn skull mounted above the bar in the lobby was there when James Dean was drinking underneath it, but the thing about Marfa that nobody who hasn't been there quite expects is the lights. The Marfa lights have been reported in the Chinati Mountains to the southwest of town since at least 1883, when a cattleman named Robert Ellison described seeing strange glowing orbs near Paisano Pass and initially assumed they were Apache campfires. There were no Apache camped there. The lights moved, they split apart, they merged, they disappeared, they came back. They still do. A state-maintained viewing area sits 9 miles east of town on US Highway 67. On clear nights, and in Marfa the nights are almost always clear because there is almost nothing between the town and the horizon. You can stand at the viewing station and watch lights behave in ways that nobody has fully explained. Over 140 years of sightings, more than a dozen scientific investigations, and no consensus. The Apache said they were stars falling to Earth. Current theories include atmospheric refraction, car headlights on a distant road, and bioluminescent gas from the desert floor. None of those explanations fully account for the reports from before highways existed. In 1973, a minimalist sculptor named Donald Judd left New York and moved to Marfa. He bought up old military barracks left over from a World War II airbase and started installing enormous concrete and steel sculptures in the desert outside town. He founded the Chinati Foundation, which today draws serious collectors and artists from across the world to this 1,788-person town in the middle of the Chihuahuan Desert. The combination of unexplained lights, James Dean's ghost, and large-scale minimalist art installations has made Marfa into something that resists description. The Hotel Paisano still serves drinks, the lights still appear, the desert is still right there, enormous and indifferent. Stillwater, Minnesota. Minneapolis gets the attention, St. Paul gets the credit, Stillwater gets the history. Stillwater is older than Minnesota. The town was established in October 1843, 6 years before Minnesota Territory was even officially created and 15 years before it became a state. It was the first territorial convention held in Stillwater in August 1848, at the corner of Myrtle and Main Street, that set the process of statehood in motion. The town exists because of the St. Croix River and the white pine forests that used to cover the land to the north. In the 1880s, Stillwater was the largest lumber producer in the world. The mills along the riverfront processed timber at a scale that supplied construction across the entire American West. Log rafts floated down from the northern forests, collected at the St. Croix boom site 2 miles upstream, sorted, and fed into the sawmills that ran continuously. Then, in 1914, the last log rafts came through. The timber was gone. The mills closed. The population, which had hit 13,000 at the height of the boom, dropped to around 7,000 and stayed there for decades. The developers who might have torn down the Victorian commercial district and replaced it with something modern had no reason to come. There was nothing to develop, so the buildings stayed. The Washington County Historic Courthouse, built in 1870, is still Minnesota's oldest functioning courthouse. The lift bridge over the St. Croix River, built in 1931, is one of the last working vertical lift highway bridges in the country. The commercial district along Main Street, now listed on the National Register of Historic Places as the Stillwater Commercial Historic District, covers 11 blocks of Victorian-era storefronts in near-original condition. Leo's Grill and Malt Shop has been serving burgers and malts from the same building using what are claimed to be the same recipes since 1957. What saved Stillwater architecturally was precisely what economically hurt it. The interstate highway system, when it was built through Minnesota in the 1950s and 1960s, went through the Twin Cities corridor and put the on-ramps where the population was. Stillwater, 20 miles east on the Wisconsin border, was treated as a secondary road destination. The through traffic went elsewhere, the chain retailers went elsewhere. The town the lumber boom built was left, largely as it was, to become something it could not have planned. A preserved example of how a prosperous 19th-century American river town looked when the prosperity arrived by water. The St. Croix runs past the bottom of Main Street. The bluffs rise behind. Antique shops occupy the old commercial buildings. People get married at the historic courthouse. The lift bridge opens for river traffic. The birthplace of Minnesota still looks like the place that invented it. Mount Airy, North Carolina. Here is the complication about Mount Airy. The town exists in a state of genuine historical preservation and intentional mythological performance simultaneously, and the two things have been operating together for long enough that they have become genuinely difficult to separate. Mount Airy is Andy Griffith's hometown. He was born here on June 1, 1926. 2026 is his centennial year, and grew up in a small house on Haymore Street while his father worked in a textile factory. The town shaped him. The pace, the cadence of conversation, the specific quality of small-town southern community where everybody knew everybody else's business but mostly kept quiet about it. When the Andy Griffith Show debuted in 1960, the fictional town of Mayberry carried the DNA of Mount Airy without ever naming it. Griffith himself, in interviews before his death in 2012, gave ambiguous answers about the connection, sometimes affirming it, sometimes deflecting. The town, wisely, stopped waiting for official acknowledgement and simply became Mayberry. Floyd's Barber Shop operates at 129 North Main Street. It is a real barber shop. You can walk in, sit in the chair, and get a haircut. The Wall of Fame inside, thousands of photographs of visitors from every state and dozens of countries who have done exactly that, covers every surface. Oprah Winfrey is in there. Lou Ferrigno is in there. Snappy Lunch has been open since 1923. Andy Griffith ate there as a boy because his school had no cafeteria, so he'd walk over during lunch. The restaurant is named in an actual episode of the show. The pork chop sandwich, battered, fried, dripping, not suited for anything other than eating over a sink, has been on the menu since the place opened. The staff will warn you to wash your hands after eating it. WPAQ 740 AM has been broadcasting the live bluegrass and old-time music show Merry-Go-Round every Saturday morning since 1948. Second longest-running radio show in America, behind only the Grand Ole Opry. Musicians come from across the Appalachians to play on it. The Andy Griffith Museum holds what is described as the largest collection of Griffith memorabilia in the world, assembled by his childhood friend Emmett Forrest over decades. Barney Fife's Salt and Pepper suit is there, original script pages, the guitar Griffith played before Hollywood. And here is the thing that sits underneath all of it. Mount Airy's downtown would be historically preserved regardless of Andy Griffith. The Granite Quarry, the North Carolina Granite Corporation, the largest open-face granite quarry in the world, 90 acres, visible from space on Google Earth, has employed the town since 1889. The granite from this quarry was used in the Wright Brothers National Memorial. The Arlington Memorial Bridge. The buildings that matter. The quarry still operates. The diner is still open. The barber shop is still taking walk-ins. The fictional Mayberry was set in the early 1960s. The real Mount Airy is running on something older and more stubborn than that. Galena, Illinois. In the spring of 1860, a man named Ulysses Grant arrived in Galena, Illinois, on a Mississippi River steamboat with his wife, 4 children, and essentially nothing else. He had failed at farming in Missouri. He had failed at real estate. His father had offered him a job as a clerk in the family leather goods store on Main Street, and Grant, at 38, was out of other options. He rented a small red brick house on Boutillier Street for $100 a year. He spent his days selling harnesses and saddles. His wife Julia later recalled, "Although he was occupying a rather humble position, we were happy." A year later, the Civil War started. Grant organized a local volunteer regiment in Galena and left to train them. He never came back to the leather store. By 1865, Ulysses Grant was general of the Union Army, and when he returned to Galena after the war, 20,000 people lined the streets, and the town elders gave him a fully furnished mansion. By 1869, he was the 18th President of the United States. All of this happened to a man who had been selling saddles in Galena the year before it started. The red brick house on Boutillier Street is still there. The brick walls, the emerald green shutters, the white trim, described by historians as virtually unchanged from 1860. The mansion the town gave Grant after the war is also still there. More than 90% of the furnishings inside date to Grant's time in the house, including his green velvet wingback chair, still positioned next to his cigar caddy. But Grant is almost a secondary detail in the story of Galena's preservation, because the town itself tells a larger story. Galena's population in the 1830s briefly exceeded Chicago's. It was the busiest river port north of New Orleans. Lead, the town is named for Galena, the Latin word for lead sulfide ore, came out of the surrounding hills in quantities that powered the construction of the early republic. Paddle wheelers hauled it down the Galena River to the Mississippi and on to ports across the Midwest. Then the lead gave out. The railroads shifted their routes. The river commerce dried up. By the 1950s, downtown Galena was filled with, as one account describes it, dilapidated taverns, diners, and boarded-up buildings. There was no money to tear them down, and no reason to replace them. So they sat. And in sitting, they became something. Today, 85% of Galena is designated as a National Historic District, more than 1,000 buildings on the National Register of Historic Places. The federal-style commercial architecture along Main Street has had, according to local historian Steve Rep, only cosmetic changes, nothing more, since the 1860s. The DeSoto House Hotel, where Grant ran his presidential campaign from rooms 209 and 211, has been operating since 1855. It is the oldest continuously operating hotel in Illinois. Abraham Lincoln spoke there. Stephen Douglas spoke there. The hotel is still taking reservations. A 30-foot lead mine shaft from the 1830s sits beneath the Galena and U.S. Grant Museum, encased in plexiglass, visible from a footbridge inside the building. The shaft was discovered when the museum tried to expand its exhibition space and found a 190-year-old mine directly below the floor. In Galena, the past doesn't stay where you put it, it keeps turning up. Bisbee, Arizona. In the summer of 1917, the Phelps Dodge Copper Mining Company organized a posse of 2,000 armed men in Bisbee, Arizona. They rounded up 1,186 striking miners at gunpoint, many of them immigrant workers, members of the Industrial Workers of the World, loaded them onto cattle cars, and transported them 200 miles into the New Mexico desert. They left them there, without food, without water, without explanation. Nobody was ever prosecuted. The event is called the Bisbee deportation. It is the darkest chapter in the history of one of the most visually remarkable towns in the American Southwest, and it happened because Bisbee was, at the time, among the most powerful industrial cities in the western half of the country. At its peak, Bisbee was the largest city between St. Louis and San Francisco. 25,000 people lived in its narrow canyons. The Copper Queen Mine, its ore body running at 23% copper, an extraordinarily high grade, produced wealth at a scale that felt permanent. The town that grew around the mine was built accordingly. Victorian commercial storefronts, ornate residential architecture, a hotel that opened in 1902 and still operates today. Then the copper ran out. Phelps Dodge shut the underground mines in 1975. The population collapsed from 25,000 to under 6,000 in less than a decade, a loss equivalent to emptying a mid-sized college town in 10 years. Housing prices crashed. Entire blocks of Victorian homes went on the market for prices that made Phoenix buyers rub their eyes. What happened next is the reason Bisbee is on this list. The developers never came. The land was too steep, the canyons too narrow, the infrastructure too old. There was no flat land for a parking lot. The economics of demolition and replacement never added up. And so the buildings stayed, perched on hillside streets connected by staircases. There are staircases in Bisbee that function as named public streets, with addresses exactly as they were when the miners built them. Artists moved in, drawn by the cheap rents and the intact Victorian architecture. Retirees followed. The Copper Queen Hotel, the one that opened in 1902, was purchased and restored. The mine itself became a tourist attraction. The Queen Mine Tour now takes visitors underground on the same train that once hauled ore, led by former miners who describe the work in terms that make clear it was not romantic. Today, Bisbee has fewer than 5,000 residents. Median home prices are approximately 38% below the Arizona statewide average. The Lavender Pit, named not for the flower but for Harrison Lavender, a mining executive, sits at the edge of town, an open wound in the earth 900 feet deep and nearly a mile across, red and orange and gray, beautiful in the specific way that industrial scars sometimes are. 8 billion pounds of copper came out of that hole. An entire neighborhood went in. Walk the switchbacking streets of Old Bisbee on a weekday afternoon, and you will pass houses at angles that make you wonder about the structural engineering decisions involved. Victorian storefronts that haven't had their facades updated since the Eisenhower administration, and a Copper Queen Hotel bar where the drinks have been poured longer than most American cities have existed. The 1286 men deported at gunpoint are remembered by a historical marker. The mine is a museum. The hotel is still open. Seligman, Arizona. On September 25, 1978, Interstate 40 opened near Seligman, Arizona. It ran about a mile south of the old alignment of Route 66 that had passed through the center of town. By the following morning, the traffic through Seligman had dropped to almost nothing. Seligman had been a Route 66 town since 1926. Before that, it was a railroad stop, founded in 1882 and named for Jesse Seligman, a New York banker who helped finance the line. The post office dates to 1903. The buildings along the main commercial block, the hardware store, the pool hall, the various service stations and diners, date to the first decades of the 20th century. At its peak, more than 9,000 vehicles a day passed through Seligman on Route 66. The town existed to service that traffic. The gas, the food, the accommodation, the particular requirements of a mid-century American family road trip. The day the interstate opened, 9,000 vehicles became a trickle. The businesses that depended on that traffic began to fail. The ones that closed simply closed, their signs fading, their windows going dark, their interiors accumulating the particular quality of stopped time that empty commercial spaces get when nobody comes to decide what to do with them next. Angel Delgadillo watched this happen from his barbershop. Delgadillo was born in Seligman. He had moved his barbershop in 1972 to take advantage of the Route 66 traffic, and then watched the traffic disappear 6 years later. In February 1987, he called a meeting at the Copper Cart restaurant. A group of business owners came. Delgadillo made a proposal. They would petition the state of Arizona to formally designate the stretch of old Route 66 from Seligman to Kingman as a historic highway. Arizona agreed. In November 1987, that stretch became Historic Route 66, the first such designation in the country. Other states followed. The designation didn't bring back the 9,000 daily vehicles, but it brought something. Road trip enthusiasts, nostalgia seekers, people who specifically wanted to drive the old road instead of the fast one. European tourists showed up in particular numbers, drawn to an idea of American road culture that the interstate had replaced but not erased. Seligman Snowcap Drive-In, which has been operating in the same building since 1953, entered the Guinness Book of World Records in 2022 for displaying 266 milkshake flavors simultaneously. The hardware store still sells hardware. The post office building from 1903 is still the post office. The town has 446 residents. The Seligman Historic District, listed on the National Register of Historic Places since 2005, protects the early 20th century commercial buildings along the old Route 66 alignment. Pixar's Cars is based partly on Seligman. John Lasseter visited Angel Delgadillo while researching the film, and Delgadillo told him how the traffic had disappeared the day the interstate opened. The fictional town of Radiator Springs, bypassed by the new highway, slowly going quiet, is Seligman, translated into animation. Angel Delgadillo still lives in Seligman. He is in his late 80s. His original barber shop is now a gift shop and unofficial Route 66 museum. The chairs are still there. The old road still runs through town. Chillicothe, Ohio. This is where the list ends, and it ends here because Chillicothe requires a specific kind of attention. It is not the most dramatic town on this list. It doesn't have unexplained lights or James Dean's ghost or bullet holes from Jesse James. It is a town of 22,000 people in Ross County, Ohio, 45 miles south of Columbus, and its main street, Paint Street, is the central fact about it. Paint Street in 1955 was the functional heart of the town. Independent retailers, family diners, local barber shops, a hardware store where the owner knew the name of everyone who walked in. The businesses existed because the community needed them, and the community supported them because they were there. In most American towns, that arrangement broke sometime in the late 1970s or 1980s. The Walmart arrived on the edge of town. The regional mall went up off the highway interchange. The businesses on Main Street, whatever the Main Street was called, either adapted, relocated, or quietly closed. The storefronts that stayed empty attracted more emptiness. The logic of the thing had changed. In Chillicothe, the logic didn't change. Not entirely. Carl's Townhouse has operated at the same address on Paint Street with the same retro signage and striped awning since 1951. The sign is original. The awning pattern is original. The interior, with its chrome-edged booths and counter stools, is what it was when Chillicothe parents brought their children in for a milkshake and a grilled cheese. The restaurant was saved from demolition in 2000 when a preservation effort convinced the owner to continue rather than sell to a developer. It is still locally owned. Jerry's Pizza opened in 1954. It has had 2 owners in 70 years. That detail, 2 owners, 7 decades, is worth sitting with for a moment. The recipe hasn't changed. The address hasn't changed. Chillicothe residents whose grandparents ate there bring their grandchildren. Allen's Restaurant, on the same block, has been a neighborhood gathering place since the 1950s. The ownership has passed through a family line. The menu has expanded but not been unrecognizable. What Chillicothe preserved is not spectacular architecture, or a famous resident, or an economic collapse that accidentally froze the buildings in amber. It preserved something quieter, the functional continuity of a working-class American Main Street. The people eating at Carl's Townhouse in 2025 are eating in the same booths, under the same sign, with the same awning above the sidewalk, as the people who ate there in 1955. Not a recreation of those booths, the booths themselves. Chillicothe was the first capital of Ohio, Incorporated in 1796 and serving as the territorial and then state capital before Columbus took over the role. The Hopewell culture, whose earthworks are among the most sophisticated examples of prehistoric monument building in North America, built their ceremonial centers in this valley more than 2,000 years ago. The Mound City section of the Hopewell Culture National Historical Park is 4 miles north of downtown. None of that is why Chillicothe is at number 1. It's at number 1 because of what happens every Saturday morning when the regulars come in and sit in the same seats at Carl's, and the guy behind the counter makes the same milkshake he made last Saturday, and the Saturday before that, going back to 1951. Not as a performance, not for the tourists, because there aren't many tourists in Chillicothe, just because that's how the place works. It always has. That is what frozen in time actually means when you think about it long enough. It's not that nothing has changed, things have changed, the prices are different. The cars in the parking lot are from this decade. The people inside have phones in their pockets. But the bones of the thing, the sign, the awning, the booths, the recipe, those haven't moved. And they haven't moved not because someone decided to preserve them, but because nobody ever found a compelling reason to change them. That, more than anything else on this list, is what frozen in time looks like from the inside, not a monument to the past, just a place that found something worth keeping and kept it. Every town on this list survived for a different reason. Seligman survived because a barber refused to let a road die. Galena survived because the lead gave out before the developers arrived. Bisbee survived because the copper crashed before anyone could afford to tear it down. Stockbridge survived because the residents said no to an interstate. Mount Airy survived because it was already what it was before anyone thought to preserve it. Bardstown survived because bourbon doesn't care about modernity. Airy survived because the people there decided the pace was right. Stillwater survived because the lumber boom built it too well to throw away. Marfa survived because it was too far from everything for anything to bother it, and then the weirdness became its own reason. And Chillicothe survived because the man who opened Carl's townhouse in 1951 built something people came back to, and they kept coming back. And now there are 3 generations who have been eating in the same booth, and the sign still says what it said on the first day. None of them planned to be here. None of them tried to freeze time. Time just moved differently where they were standing. If you found a town on this list you want to know more about, or if there's one we missed that deserves to be on the next list, drop it in the comments. We'll be back with more of the America that didn't make it onto the highway signs. Subscribe if this is the kind of thing you want more of. We're just getting started.